Domestic abuse is not just physical. It can take many forms. Emotional, verbal, sexual, or financial abuse. It knows no boundaries. Race, gender, age, or socioeconomic status. No one is immune. But together, we have the power to make a difference.
My name is Nike GREENE, and I am a survivor of domestic violence.
My name is Glen Banfield, and I am a Chief Deputy District Attorney with the Multnomah County District Attorney's Office. Well, it's important for me to participate in this video because, this is something that has affected my life. It's affected the lives of other people that I know that are very close to me. And when I started working as a prosecutor, I got an opportunity to really help victims. And ever since I've done that, it's just been something that's been heartfelt and compelling for me to do and participate in anytime I can help where I can.
My name is RICO, and I'm the VAWA deputy. That means the Violence Against Women Act deputy in the Multnomah County DA's office. Domestic violence is the reason I became a prosecutor. I grew up in a community where domestic violence was very prevalent. I'm Colombian, and I'm an immigrant from Colombia, and I grew up watching my aunts and my cousins go through that so much. And when I went to law school, I knew that I had a voice and that I could speak up for people like my cousins and my aunts who couldn't speak for themselves. And of course, as an immigrant myself and somebody who speaks a different language, I know how much lack of access to this type of resources there is in the criminal justice system, and how difficult it is for our survivors to tell this story to a stranger, let alone a stranger who doesn't know their culture or doesn't know their language. So I knew that now that I had a voice, that I had to use it, and that I had to use it for the people that can't speak for themselves.
My mom was a survivor of domestic violence, and she was vocal and outspoken about it when she was growing up. I was born and raised in the Virgin Islands, and she was instrumental in a group of women that worked in the island to combat domestic violence. So I kind of grew up with it, or it was part of my mom's, who she is. She was an advocate, she's an advocate. She's a survivor and an advocate, and that's kind of what I am able to do now in my role as a Deputy District Attorney.
Hi, my name is Chanel Thomas. I am a survivor of domestic violence, and I am a victim advocate with the Multnomah County District Attorney's Office.
Hi, I'm Emily Hyde. I am the Program Supervisor for the Multnomah County District Attorney's Office Victim Assistance Program.
It was important for me to be part of this video as a survivor, but also as a provider. And I need people to know that the victims that I'm serving know that I'm a survivor as well. And so I've been there, but I also want to lead them and guide them through the system. And so we need to get the word out, DV awareness, and it's nothing to be ashamed of.
I have been doing domestic violence work for 22 years now, and it is extremely important. The work changes you, people change you. Domestic violence is a crime that's based in a relationship, and I really feel like healing is also based in a relationship. And so bringing awareness to it, starting to have more open dialogue and conversation is so important, because isolation is such a key component to how people continue to be abused, how people continue to maintain that control. And so part of breaking the silence is through efforts just like this in building community and relationship.
domestic violence is something that affects us all. You know, it's something that permeates throughout our society, throughout our communities. And it doesn't discriminate on who it victimizes, on its victims at all. And in fact, it affects us all in one way or the other. Most of us know someone that have been a survivor of domestic violence, and it actually affects the most vulnerable of us in our communities.
We as a community have done a disservice to our survivors by not making domestic violence an epidemic and an issue of the proportions that it is. I am very much of the mind that we need to have so much awareness about it, and we all need to be talking about it as much as we're talking about COVID, because it's that bad. And the violence that has come with the pandemic for the people in our community who are survivors is as bad as the COVID pandemic. And I think that it's really sad that we're not talking about it in that level when the numbers show that that is exactly what is happening.
I mean, I can tell you over the years, I've tried over 40 domestic violence cases in my time as a prosecutor. And that was many years ago, and I built great relationships in helping those folks. And that's a lot of cases for one prosecutor to try in domestic violence. And just to kind of give you a little snapshot of kind of the numbers and the volumes of cases that we review, in the past year, our office, our deputies have reviewed over 2,500 reports of domestic violence incidents in our community. That's a large number, you know. And you know, actually the other thing I wanted to mention was right now we're seeing unprecedented gun violence in our community. You know this, and throughout the nation, quite frankly. And gun violence it's no stranger to domestic violence as well. You know, firearms can be used to intimidate, they can be used to coerce, they can be used to threaten victims of domestic violence. And there was a study put out, I'm trying to remember the name of the organization, National Coalition for Domestic Violence, or National Association of Domestic Violence, that indicates that if a firearm is introduced into a domestic violence situation, it's 500% times more likely that a homicide will occur.
I'm Colombian, and in Colombia, it's very much a male-driven society, right? So we do have a patriarchal society where misogyny is very big. And I can tell you from my own experience that women are often blamed when they are abused. Well, why aren't you a better wife? Why aren't you cooking him the meals? Why did you get laid? Why are you wearing that skirt? Are you asking for trouble, right? And so part of my role and why I'm so passionate about domestic violence is because I can help break those barriers, right? I can help these women that come from my own culture and cultures who are very similar to mine, where that is also real, that they need to understand it's not okay. It's not your fault. It's absolutely everything on them. And so it's letting them know, I get it. I have been there. My culture is the same. I know how difficult it is to go against an entire culture, against your family, against, you know, against a community that sees things this way. But I can tell them I've been there and we can do it together.
I think it's important to break the silence because we have, and domestic violence mostly, I mean, statistically affects women. But we have young women looking up to us, coming up after us, and watching us how we work in relationships. And we want to be healthy. We want to be better. And we want them to be better than us and keep it going. And we need to show them that we can do that. And breaking the silence, I don't want anybody to feel like they have to keep this on the down low of what they're going through. I know today, and I'm so thankful for Nike, I came out today as a survivor to my coworkers. And it's important.
It is, it's huge. Take the breath, right? Take the breath. Yeah.
Yeah. It's across everything: class, race, gender, everything. You can be wealthy, poor. It can still be there. But we got you. Come talk to us. We're there. We're not a cold building.
No.
There's real people in there. Break the silence and break the cycle.
Domestic violence is a deeply alarming issue that affects countless individuals around the world. It encompasses various forms of abuse, such as physical, emotional, and sexual violence, which occur within intimate relationships or family settings. However, amidst the darkness, there are incredible stories of strength and resilience from victims who have overcome their abusers. These survivors demonstrate immense courage and determination in rebuilding their lives, tapping into their inner strength to break free from the cycle of abuse. By sharing their experiences, these survivors empower others, raise awareness, and inspire change. Their journeys teach us the importance of standing up against domestic violence, supporting victims, and promoting a culture of respect, empathy, and equality.
Sharing my story, I've always known it is part of a much larger story in a larger community. And to provide a space and a platform for so many voices that are silent, that for me, so many years didn't find a stage, a microphone, a space where we could share our stories, to be vulnerable enough for others to be able to heal. Today is monumental. To see some of my very close friends, people I do life with, from all different backgrounds, to be vulnerable and decide to share today. For some, for the first time. And to do it not because they want it to be in front of a camera, but to do it because they don't want anyone else to go through what they've gone through. And so it's a healing process. It is humbling, and it's heart-changing. And I don't know what the final product is going to look like. I don't know who's even going to pick up this video and watch it, but I know that amplifying these voices today are essential. And it's part of the healing process for our community.
So one of the biggest times I remember through abusive of my relationships, I was 23 years old, and I had actually walked away from this person and said, I can't do this anymore. For some reason, I have this really big heart that says, I just can't let go. And I'll still try to help people, and I didn't know boundaries. And this individual had asked me for a ride, and I said, sure, I can take you, but I have plans, so I need to be home by a certain time. And he became very abusive when he couldn't get what he wanted from me, which was to drive him around to find where his missing pieces of mail were at. Something so simple, and to help somebody with, I had no issue doing that. He became verbally abusive. At that point in time, I started to shut down because I knew what was coming next. I tried everything I could, calmly talking, not looking him in the face, not making any jerk reactions, sudden movements, anything that could have escalated the situation, because I knew what could happen. I pulled into a parking lot and politely asked him to please get out of my car when he started yelling at me. Next thing you know, I was all kinds of, pardon my language, bitches, unhelpful, ungrateful, not worthy, I wasn't enough. He started slapping me, pushed my head into the steering wheel. And at that point in time, I'd had enough and I started fighting back, which was probably the worst thing I could have done. He grabbed my keys out of my ignition, continued to punch me in the back of my head. He put 2 cigarettes out on my leg after he had taken the keys out of my car. I tried to roll the window up, unlock the door, and he's like, "I got the key." I was thankful I had my seatbelt on still. He unlocked the door and he grabbed me by my hair and he just went to the back of my head. I had lumps in the back of my head for almost 3 years. I had to go through scans to make sure my brain wasn't damaged. For almost 2 years after that, this person still stalks me to this day. I've changed phone numbers. Unfortunately, I live in the same house I've lived in for 20 years. You're not gonna make me move. I'm not gonna be that scared I'm moving. I've had to change phone numbers, social media accounts, blocking everything and anything. He tries to go through family members to get to me still because they're decent people. You know, he has issues, that's not their fault. But it taught me a lot. It taught me so much to pay attention to people's actions. I got counseling afterwards to know it's not me, it's them. They have their issues, and no matter how much love you could have for somebody as just a person or a mate, if they treat you in such a manner, you have to be strong enough to run. You have to find that safe space, and that's something I didn't have then. I'll take that back. I did have it. I was too embarrassed to bring it forward. And it's because my family has a history of it and we didn't talk about it. And it wasn't until I went through this, we finally all started talking about it and breaking that from going forward. I don't want it to happen to my sons. I also have daughters I don't want it to happen to. This is why I stay involved.
So financial abuse, for me, that was a big one. I have 2 kids. He made me go to 6 different payday loan places within a 2-day period. Took out 6 payday loans. I was working at the time, but he was able to get 6, paid none of them back. So of course they all came on me. So after I left that situation, the garnishments started coming in. I had a total of 7 garnishments within a 2-year period. So every paycheck, I was being garnished. My credit score went down to a 345. We had about 7, maybe 6 repossessions for vehicles that was purchased in my name. Yeah, he made me file bankruptcy when I really didn't need to file bankruptcy. I only had like $8,000 in debt, so I didn't need to do it, but that happened. And then when bankruptcy happened, that was for him a clean slate to build up more credit and get more cards and more loans and money. When he first started, holding me down, that scared me enough to comply, to do what he says to do. And as it kind of increased and he just got more creative and more ideas, I got beat with whatever was around. Hammers, lamps, cords. I was working at Sears and we were living in North Portland. I had to catch the bus to get to work. I missed the first bus, so I was trying to be proactive and catch another bus to catch the connection, because if I didn't get to work at a certain time and call him, that would be him coming to my job, pulling me off, and I would get beat. So I missed that connecting bus, and he just so happened to be at the bus stop, the connecting bus that I missed. And he happened to be there, and he got on that bus, and my whole life was just like, because now he's gonna think that I went somewhere totally different because I went off route. He got on the bus, took me off. We walked down the streets, throughout the streets to my home. And as we're walking, he is like pushing me down to the ground. He's beating me. People came out to help. He fought them. Whenever people tried to help me, it never worked. So I didn't feel like I had any type of support. For me to not leave, he took his hammer and he beat the outsides of my knees to make sure I didn't go anywhere. I couldn't walk, they were swollen. He made me walk. He still made me do cleaning and things of that nature. I mean, there's so many things that happened. He beat me on my back with the auxiliary cord, the cable cords with the metal part, so bad on my back, and I had to turn around and hold my hands. And if I let my hands go, he would beat me more. And he made me go to the store, buy a bunch of alcohol and peroxide. I didn't know why. And he ran a bath and poured a bunch of bottles of peroxide and alcohol. And my back is completely scarred up and, you know, just bleeding. And he made me get into that water. That was the worst. That was the worst feeling ever, to get into a bath of alcohol when you have open wounds. He beat me. He had an industrial hammer, and he beat me with that to the point where my arms are bleeding. And this is the first time that he beat me so bad I got knocked unconscious. I just remember him standing over me, shaking me. I thought maybe I was asleep. But when he was sitting over shaking me, and I cannot explain it, but when I seen his face, it wasn't his face. And that woke me up, and then I felt my arms were sore. So I jumped out the window. It was one level. I jumped out the window. My arms, I had no strength in my arms. I couldn't, so I had to run. And I just remember that day, I purposely walked across the street so a car can hit me, because I didn't want to, I didn't want to go back, because I knew I would go back. And I just remember getting on the bus, taking the number 9 on Powell through downtown, went to my mom's, ended up hiding across the street because I didn't tell my mom or anybody what happened. They knew, but I never admitted and told anybody. And he came there asking where I was. It was just, I didn't want to admit to my mom what happened. I had to leave him for 3 months, but during the course of that time, he applied for state assistance. So after a few months, I went, and he was like, well, where were you the 3 months that you left? So I told him what happened, and he's like, you know what, I don't believe you. I know you're with some other person. As I turned around to say something to him, he grabbed my head and hit it against the dashboard and drove off to the site that he was working. He let me know he was gonna tell his boss that he was leaving for the day, and he was going to take me to his house, and he was gonna beat me. When he went inside the complex, I left out again, so I just kind of took off and I ran. I have about 8 different keloid scars on my body from him punching and from the cords, my skin tearing. To avoid going to the hospital, he would sew me up with needle and thread. When he first hit me on my side, and it cut me pretty deep, we went to the hospital. He watched how the doctor sewed it up, and I knew that he was watching to learn. So the next time he did, and my skin tore, he would sew me up with needle and thread, and I had to sit there and take it. So I went to my mom's house and told her I was done. It was Thanksgiving morning, and he ended up, I was cooking breakfast, and I cooked the eggs different. And because I cooked them different, he thought that some man taught me how to cook them. So he took the skillet off the stove, threw it across the floor, hit me with the skillet. And I can't remember how I left, but I know I left, me and the kids, and went to my mom's house. I was there for that morning, and she said if I go back, she's gonna call the police. And he came and he apologized and said all the things that, you know, we want to hear. And I thought that he was being truthful because it was in front of my mom. He apologized for hitting me. He wouldn't do it again. And that was I believe that was my mom's first time hearing him say it. So I thought, okay, this is a change, you know. So I ended up going back. That evening, she called the police. About 6 police officers came. On that day, I had a busted blood vessel, and my lip was, he sewed up my lip. And the police, you know, they did the well child check. And my daughter was scared, of course. I don't know what reaction I got from my son, but at some point they separated us. And my mom came. And then all I remember is them telling me, if you let us know what happened, you can go home with your kids. And I hear him in the back, Kenyatta, if you do, it's gonna be trouble. And what replayed in my head was, whenever he got put over by the police, nothing ever happened. And I remember him telling me, if he ever get arrested, he's gonna come out and he's gonna find me. So that felt more real than the officer telling me, if you tell the truth, you can have your kids and we'll go back home. So I didn't. I stuck with whatever he was telling me to say. I took the kids, they went to my mom. And even at that point, I was still with him. So after my kids were taken, I'm gonna say within that year, I was still going to court, fighting to get my son and my daughter with him. So it was really hard because the courts knew that something was going on, but I needed to admit it. And because I didn't admit it, it just prolonged things. So we had to go to all the classes. And that's when I started going to the DV classes. I think they did not work for me because I was in a different frame of mind, because I was still with him. I was still under his control in a sense, you know. So me going into those meetings, they didn't help me. For me at that moment, because I wasn't at the point where I was ready to tell anybody what happened. Whenever the courts come in, the state comes in, they have you interview with the court's clerk. I can't remember their title, but they interview myself, they interview the abuser. They interview the abuser with myself and the kids to see, so they can get a record of behaviors and reactions. So when that came up, I was like, I was tired. I was still being beat during the course of going to classes. The instructors are seeing my bruises. They're figuring out like you're still in it, but I was in it, you know. I went to the court reporter, I met with her, and this was my first time explaining every scar I had, everything. She started typing, and then she stopped, but I assumed that she stopped typing because there was recorders in the room, right? So I was like, this is a lot of information. So our hour meeting ended up being 3 hours because I was letting everything out. Then I know I met with her and the kids, excuse me, he did, and then he met with the kids and her first. And just now going back and reading the files, the notes on him with the kids were very well mannered. They were nice. They asked to go play with the toys. We were very happy to see that these kids are thriving with him, kind of talk. So I was like, okay, it sounds good, right? And then when I met with the kids, they were, you know, they have the toys in the room. They just shot over to the toys. They were playing. They weren't asking me, Mom, can we do this? It was a different environment. So what I learned after, when they called me back for the last interview, where I thought they were going to tell me the conclusion, she started asking me the same questions again. And I was like, well, we went over all this. And then I found out that she stopped typing because she didn't believe me, because there was no way someone can be in that type of relationship and not tell anybody. So all the years, the 8 years of all the physical that I've been through, I never told anybody until that day. And then for her to be working in the courthouse and completely not listen or record, it shook me, and I had to tell it all over again to another person. And it really pissed me off because the notes that were for him was, he was charming. So that kind of threw me. And honestly, when I got into working at Bradley Engel as an advocate, and I went through the 40-hour advocacy training and learning all the different characteristics and more about DV, I felt like that whole manual was about my abuser. Not understanding that this is across the board. A lot of the abusers carry the same characteristics. So if those 9 years that I went through it, I didn't realize it, it didn't click for me, and even after it didn't click, I want to be able to be in a position to help people understand what it can look like. It's going to look different with everybody, but there's always those core things that happen that people need to look out for. And I just kind of want to be that voice for men, women, whoever needs to know what I've been through so they don't go through the same thing, or they can at least keep an eye out if something like that is happening.
Survivors' stories remind us that healing is possible. By providing compassionate support, we can help survivors rebuild their lives and reclaim their self-worth. Together, we can create communities of resilience where no one is left behind.
My scars you can't see. It's definitely a mental and emotional thing, and I never realized, you know, emotional abuse and psychological abuse, that's a thing, and that's it's painful, and so I never knew that, like, going through what I went through with, you know, yeah, just all that, was like that for me kind of just, yeah, changed my perspective of what domestic violence is. I was in a relationship, and from the beginning, you know, I saw some red flags, but I ignored them. And, you know, there's a lot of good times, and there's times where I kind of said, well, that, you know, that doesn't feel right. Like I'm being told to react a certain way, or I'm being told I'm not doing things right. But then there's a lot of good times, and so there's both those experiences together of well, doesn't feel right, but then, you know, like I'm having a good time with this person. This person's charming and whatnot, and yeah, and then we had a child, and things kind of just got worse, and I was not happy, and yeah, and luckily, you know, I had a lot of the support of my family, you know, believing me, friends believing me, and kind of me giving them examples of I felt kind of crazy of just like, am I really experiencing this? Like, I was a lot of gaslighting, and just a lot of me, yeah, kind of thinking like I'm going crazy. So yeah, just like having support of friends and family was huge, a part of yeah, recovering, and being able to, you know, live with my parents, move in with them, and that was huge support, because I don't think if I had that support, it'd be different. Being able to use my voice and share my experience is something that I've actually wanted to do, and also just something that, yeah, like, I think if if someone else hears it, then they can hopefully have hope and survive.
First type of violence that I experienced, I would say growing up, seeing my mother and my father fight. It was just the norm. I got into my own relationship, it was perfect. And then he slowly started being very, very verbally abusive, never physical, never. And then we finally split up, and then I got into a relationship with this guy named Edward. And we were together for only 3 months, and he treated me very, very, very nice, sweet, everything I've ever wanted. But undercover, he was very, very abusive. 3 months after being together, he shot me in my head, and I lost my eye. All I remember, my story is that he didn't do it. That's what I tell myself, is that he didn't do it. I ended up going to prison because I had a mental breakdown. He was obviously in prison. He was released about 6 months before me. I asked for help from numerous people to be able to talk to him. I did not get that help anywhere. So, social media, I did it myself. I met up with him at a park at 3 o'clock in the morning. Nobody knew where I was. Thankfully, he was more worried than I was, so he left. And then on the 4th of July, I ran into him of 2021. I ran into him at the gas station, and we exchanged numbers. And that night, he hit me up and he was like, let's talk. Where are you at? And I was like, this is where I'm at. And he's like, we'll come to the bar. And I'm like, you're crazy. It's 4th of July. There's already big booms. I'm not doing it. No. But I did. And I got my answers. He's very manipulative. He made it seem like it was my fault, that I did it to myself, is what he told me. Is that I told him to reenact it out for me, of course without the gun. And he did. I believe the story. I don't believe all of it. He did tell me we were fighting, arguing about me wanting to go and get money from some guy. I was also into sex trafficking, and he was against that at all. Like, he did not want me to do that. So we were arguing about that, and that's when he put the gun to my head and screamed, is it okay to cuss? He screamed at me and said, today's not the day, bitch. You're about to lose your life. Something about playing Russian roulette, and that supposedly I smacked it out of his hand and it went off. And I said, I believe you, I do, but you're still in the wrong for having your finger on that trigger. You should have never been on that trigger. So it's a little bit about that. It's a little bit about that. Sometimes it goes, sometimes it stays, sometimes I don't remember any of it. I'm surprised I remember it now. He was in a marriage, which I did not know this before we were together. A Christmas day of whatever year, he shot up his baby mom, or his wife's vehicle, because he was using methamphetamines, and she didn't want him to be at Christmas with the family because his kids were there. So he didn't leave, so they left. And he followed them and shot up the car. He was on probation for that. Why me? That's what I want to know. I didn't do anything to him. I catered to his every need, never cheated on him. I loved him. I thought I loved him. I didn't love him. Why me? That's all I wanted to know. And what happened, because I had no idea. I thought his brother shot me. I woke up in the hospital and I was determined, like, He didn't shoot me. He couldn't shoot me. There's no way. There's no way. He shot me. I didn't shoot myself. I know his brother didn't shoot me. Sometimes, but he shot me. That's all I wanted to know is why. Why me?
You feel like you got your answers?
Nope. I did not. And they're not even worth fighting for anymore. I don't care. Some days are better than others.
My dad was alcoholic, and he beat my mom a lot in front of us, broke her nose, you know, stuff like that. So that kind of made me more watchful and mindful. Knowing I didn't want a man like that. I seen it happen to my mom, my sister been through it, I have been through it. I kind of like blocked it out, like kind of like was in denial, you know, for a long time. So really, this is my first time talking about it. I don't really talk about it, so I really like block it out, you know, like when it happened, so. You know, and I was just watching a movie, it was a series that came on Netflix, and I just found out that you get PTSD from domestic violence. I didn't know that. That's what I'm saying. I learned something new every day. So I might have got it from that, I don't know. But back in my day, it wasn't something that you talked about, you know, it's kind of like hidden more. So now it's coming out more, and I see people talking about it, like the meat, all this. So now it's easier for me to talk about. But back then, that's just like being on mental health medication. It's like you're ostracized. So, you know, then abusive men stick together, just like police go stick together with a story. So, you know, it's just different. You know, like when I came in here, I've never seen a man come and admit that he had domestic. I mean, it's different. You know, now men are coming forward and saying stuff, which, you know, and they should be able to. It's not just for one gender, you know, for females. So I just see that type of stuff heals me. You know, seeing that people are coming forward. When I was coming up, people hid it and you weren't to talk about it, you know, so that's what I look at, and that's what makes me grow.
I think when I think about my own experience with domestic violence, because when I was being beaten and even after sharing my story, victims all the time, number one question, it's never about the offender. I shouldn't say never, but most of the time, it's not about the offender. It's always like, why did you stay? Why didn't you leave? How can you love someone who hurts you? And most of us, and I'll just say myself, you start doing this self-discovery. Like, how did I get to a point where I even thought this was okay, or I let it go on for so long? And I think back to my earliest childhood memory where I was abused, where I was at a swimming pool, just going swimming as a young girl. And my brother's taking me there, right at our local pool, literally the park we just left. And I am, you know, touched inappropriately by what we called the grandpa of the pool. And my mom did everything right. Thankfully, someone in the pool saw what was going on and brought it to the attention and stopped the abuse. But I went home and my brother carried me on his back over 1.5 miles, and my mom comes off of work and she asks me all the right questions. She actually even had kissed me on it, this little teddy bear, and she asked me, did he touch you and where did he touch you? And all I could remember is when we were leaving the pool, there were all of these police sirens coming, and I remember seeing him out of my peripheral as I'm riding my brother's back, looking backwards, and I think I was maybe 6 or 7 years old. And I remember my brother saying in a joking way, somebody's going to jail. And in that moment, I carried that into that bedroom of my mom hugging me and asking me, and I just thought, I don't want to go to jail. I must have been a bad girl. my mom is asking me all these questions and I don't want her to be mad at me. And I mean, she did everything right. And I don't even know how at that age, I literally was like, no, nothing happened. I felt like I was protecting me. I felt like I was protecting my mom. And I truly believe that was the beginning. That first trauma, that first violation of myself was the first step in me not being my full self. And it was just small monuments of those instances that as I look to the point where I got into this relationship that was so violent that I had already had these small and big and monstrous violations of my body, the world was no longer safe. I was starting to learn how to survive at an early age that I should have never had to survive, or I should have just been able to live. So by the time I get into this relationship, I don't know who I am. I'm searching for something that I think I'm gonna find in this amazing guy that literally, like, he fits it to the T. I'm an athlete. I'm struggling with my life, but I'm an athlete and I want an athlete, you know? And I want this guy to be tall and dark and handsome. Like literally, I was like, okay, I love all of the fantasy books. I'm like, yes, you're gonna be my Black Knight in shining armor. We're doing this. Like, we're doing the picket fence, the whole thing. I'm not gonna be a statistic. And I don't even think if I would have seen the signs, I would have noticed them or would have been vigilant, because I settled for a package. And that package that was so shiny and nice became very tainted and rusted and very harmful to me real quick. And it wasn't something different like other domestic violence, but it was, he was amazing. He would tell me how amazing I am and how strong I was, and my strength was, you know, pretty cool. I grew up as a tomboy, so you know, if someone was able to see anything feminine in me, I thought that was pretty cool, because I was wearing shorts, and back then I didn't, you know, do a lot to my hair. It's not like I walked around with makeup on, and everybody used to just call me a tomboy. And so for someone to come and see the lady in me, I was like, whoa, like this guy's like seeing, he's calling me beautiful. And it was just a different attribute given to me. It wasn't I was a stud or I was just strong in that sense, but he was actually saying I was beautiful and that, you know, I looked good in that versus that was a good jump shot. and then it just turned very quickly to that slowness of I was embarrassing him. I was talking too loud, a shove, a push up against the fence. It was always about me not doing the right thing, and it was always about my mouth. And I was like, yeah, I probably could fix that. So I just started blaming myself too. I was like, yeah, you know what, like you talk too much. Yeah, you do share your opinion. You probably should stop doing that. And then it got worse. First, he had already isolated me. He had isolated me so much I had moved out of Oregon. And a lot of people didn't realize it. I told my family I was going down to visit, but I knew I wasn't coming back. And I moved out of Oregon and into California with him and his family. And by then it was, you know, he had almost thrown me out of a car. He had picked me up one day by my throat in front of everybody. This, which was really, it wasn't in silence. It wasn't in quiet. This was the norm, which made it really, really hard to get out. He thought I was looking at his cousin or something. It's a big party at the house. Everybody's watching. No one's stopping. And he, you know, he's 6'3", you know, a good 250 solid muscle. And I'm pretty small. So he just picks me up by my neck and literally slams me on top of a car. He bangs my head into a brick wall. I mean, there's just multiple stories, but it was one day where I really thought things were getting better. And it was very hot because it's hot in California. And I'm just swimming at the pool. And company had came over, and it was just a friend of the family that was out, and I was swimming in the pool, and he decides to get in the swimming pool, which he normally doesn't do. And then we're swimming, and he splashes me, I splash back, and now we're just splashing like regular people. I'm thinking we're having fun. And then I saw the look in his eye. And he swam over and began to cuss at me. And was, you know, what the F are you doing? And, you know, just after a while, you just stop listening. And he pushes me under the water, holds me for a second, and then was like, so is that funny? Is that funny? And I knew right away, this is bad. And then he pushed me under the water and held me a little longer, and he said, is that funny? And I'm telling him, you know, I'm trying not to yell and scream because I know it's going to escalate, and he has an audience. And then he held me down again till I felt water coming down my throat. And I thought it was my last breath. Didn't expect it. And in that moment, I don't know if it was God, I don't know if it was me. I just remember feeling my body being thrust away from him. And I remember him, he yelled something, why'd you kick me or whatever. I don't even know if I kicked him. And I just remember jumping out of the pool and beginning to throw up. I'm throwing up as I go, and I just go in the house and I get in the shower. I turn the shower on and I just sit at the bottom of the shower, hysterically crying for over an hour. And thinking, okay, we gotta do something different. He's gonna kill me. I didn't know how to leave. I didn't know what I was gonna do. I had no plan. I wasn't like packing my bag. I just knew this was it. And so I stayed still longer. It was maybe 3 or 4 months after that. And it was escalating. It was so bad. One of his family members tried to break up one night where he was beating the crap out of me. They tried to come in and stop, and he actually broke their arm. So the last moment was, he came home, he was drunk, and I don't even remember really, honestly, exactly what started. I just know that he thought I had been on the phone with somebody because he had isolated me. So the only way I would call my family is I would have to walk 4 blocks away, and I would use a payphone. So he wouldn't know who I was calling or talking to, just enough to check in and say I was okay. And that day, I had used the house phone, and caller ID had just came out. So he overheard and looked at the caller ID and was very upset. But I just remember that day he jumped on me on the bed, and I was laying on my back, and he just began to punch. I mean, he was punching me for so long, my whole body went numb. And I mean, I can't remember one piece of me that he wasn't punching on other than my face. And he literally was like, you should be glad I allow you to go into public. That's why I'm not touching your face. And as my body is going numb because I can no longer feel the blows, I truly believe I heard this very sweet, soft voice in that moment saying, and why are you here? And I remember looking at his face, and you'll hear a lot of domestic violence survivors say this, but I looked at his face and I didn't recognize him. This was no longer the guy that I wanted to be with. This was no longer my knight in shining army. This wasn't the guy that was gonna save me. He was not gonna give me the house and the love and the kindness that I need. And I just remember just saying, I gotta figure this out. I gotta get out of here. Like, it was the first time I was like, I got to get out of here. I have to escape. And at some point he stopped swinging. I think he got tired. And the routine was after he would beat me, I would always go into the bathroom and soak in the bath he would, bring Epsom salt or whatever the stuff was. Actually, it was like baking soda and some things. And he would, go outside, take a drink, and then come and start talking about how sorry he was and how, if I would have just, did something different. And it was always my fault. It was always my fault. And I sat in that bathtub and I just said, God, if you get me out of this, I don't know what to do. If you get me out of this, I'm not going to turn back. So I tried to leave, and he followed me to the bus station and snatched me out of the car. For the second time, we had a friend of the family that I asked, can you take me? Can you get me out of here? Take me to the Greyhound. I want to live. And second attempt, unfortunately, she was kind of a part of this culture of domestic violence. And so she decided to go to the gas station, and her tank was on 3/4. She had plenty of gas, but she wanted me to miss the train because later find out she was actually involved with him. So I begged her to take me to her house so I could try the train the next day. And she agreed, and so I went to her house, and he calls, I see him calling her, and I'm like, just don't answer the phone. Please don't answer the phone. And if you do, just tell him I'm not here. And she answered the phone, and she told him I was there, and he came and got me. And beat me for the last time for trying to leave. And his sister stepped up and said, do not unpack your bags. I'm taking you tomorrow. And the very next day, she took me, and I never looked back again.
I lost my sister at the young age of 26 to domestic violence. My sister unfortunately passed away protecting a man that she needed protection from. She suffered in silence. She did not tell the family until literally the last minute, and there was really only so much we can do from there. They were married for less than a year. She departed, let's say, a little bit under a month shy from her first year anniversary. She left behind 3 children, whom we are lucky to have, but it's sad to see that she will not be able to watch them grow up. She's very attached to her children. She's always been a natural mother. She's a natural mother. And I am hurt that she lost her life to somebody who she loved and who she wanted to protect. On the morning of October 2nd, I got some weird text messages from her husband from her phone, and she never replied to the messages. It was always him. And so I felt like something was off. Like I got a horrible feeling in my heart. So I left work at 1:30 a.m., drove straight to her apartment, and on the way, the whole time I was communicating with him on her phone and telling him to put her on the phone, but he never did. And so he was like, she's asleep, I'll put you on speakerphone. So I'm just yelling through the phone like, Lila, if you can hear me, please say something, please, tell me that you're okay, wake up, just, I'm not gonna leave until I hear your voice. And she never responded. So I drove all the way from Legacy Hospital to 174th and Stark. communicating with him off and on. Never heard from my sister. I got to the house. The stove light was on, but the house was like dark. So I'm knocking on the door. I know he's there because we've been talking the whole time, and he's saying she's asleep, but he won't open the door. And so immediately I knew something was wrong. I didn't feel safe just going into the house. Doors were locked, he wasn't opening, she wasn't opening the door. So I went to my car and called the police. Police took a while to come. When they did come, they did initially go into the house, but came right back out. No word, no nothing. He said he had a gun. So they backed out of the house. And they didn't pursue. They didn't go, literally the standoff, I got off at 1:30 and went straight there. They didn't go into the house until 8:30 in the morning to pronounce my sister dead. We weren't able to identify her body. They didn't want us to. They identified them on their own with showing us tattoos, which we confirmed was her. The whole incident, the whole ordeal was just, it was heartbreaking, scary. First time ever losing someone that close to me. We shared a room for 18 years, so that was just like, she was my person. The moment I knew she was gone was about 3 o'clock in the morning when they asked if there was anywhere else she could be. And I'm like, I know she's there. He said she's there. She wouldn't be anywhere else. And then they asked if he had a heart monitor, like a pacemaker or something. So in my head, I felt like they knew, like they had infrared, or they can see like the bodies in the house and her body wasn't being detected. So that's how I knew she was gone. She died by his hands. There was no weapons involved. She died by his bare hands. When he went to his first court date, like he was just smiling and laughing, like he just didn't care what he did, and he really left 3 children on this earth without a mother. And that's my story. That's my sister's story. Now we are here to hopefully live on. We're going to keep her spirit alive through her babies. We're going to continue her legacy.
Well, I had a sister that was in an abusive relationship, and long before I was. And watching her go through that is the silence part that's a killer. That's the hurtful part, because I did nothing to stop it, you know? It would make no sense for me to put myself in a situation with my relative if this is something they're just gonna go back to and back to and back to. And the relationship was more important to me than me kind of speaking up and losing the relationship, which is a terrible position to be in too. So that's the worst part of the abuse. Me going through it wasn't as bad as me watching someone I love go through it. So that part was really difficult. Took 20 years for her to realize what she did to me emotionally and asking me to be in that situation with her and supporting her through that. But how do you turn your back on someone you love and you know that they're going through this? It's a very difficult position to be in. You don't know what the impact is. People who go through it don't even know the impact of it on them until years later sometimes, you know? So it was really painful going through it when I was in the situation with my sister and being out of the situation with her, I found that my healing on that has to come through her. You know what I'm saying? Like, when she got out of the situation, it was big for me. Like, it stopped me from getting gray hair, stopped me from aging. Although she's not aging through this process, it seemed to age me a lot more because I seemed to worry or care for her more than she did at the time. It sucks, but that's the truth of it. And it had a long lasting effect on me as well as the children. Me and taking care of the children. I think the children were with me a lot more just so that I could keep them out of that type of environment. But until they get over it, until they come out of it, the pain doesn't stop. And until you and that person can have those conversations about it, the pain doesn't stop for your family either. Like, you have to be accountable for what you put them through during that time. A lot of people are not accountable. If you guys have family members that have supported you through this, you should tell them how appreciative you are of it, because it helps a lot. It really helps a lot.
It is personal, not for obvious reasons. I haven't been a victim of domestic violence. I'm not a domestic violence survivor. My wife hasn't been, my daughter hasn't been. I don't have people very close to me that have experienced that. But it's personal because of the way it impacts my community. And I love my community members I love. And I was the youth pastor at my church for 7 years before I started working at SCI. I worked with the juvenile justice system before I came to work at SCI, and have seen the impacts of this on my community, on people that I love, and the folks that come seeking services at SCI. Like, I've had conversations with probably hundreds of people in the 20 years I've been working in some form of social work. And a conversation that happens all the time is like, do you really care about me? Do you really love me? Or is this just your job? And for me, it's not just my job. If I win the lottery tomorrow, I'm not gonna retire. Like, I might hire somebody to answer my emails and write my case notes, but I will be doing the same thing I'm doing now, because I don't do it because it's my job. I do it because it's my life, and I'm very blessed to be able to have a job that allows me to act out and live out the things that I'm very passionate about. So the reason I do this is because I have a deep love for the people of my community, and I want to see them thrive. I want them all to know the options that they have. I want them all to know that the gifts and the strength that they have within them to be able to succeed is, those gifts and that strength is significant. And too many times I don't, like, this is probably not the right language to use, but it might be appropriate in this setting, but we beat the hope out of people. If I go and talk to a group of kindergartners and ask them what they want to be when they grow up, like, you hear so many heart-lifting things. Like, their options in their mind are so wide open. There's so many things I can do. There's no limit on what I can be. I want to be an astronaut. I want to be a doctor. I want to be an NBA basketball player. Like, you hear all these things if I go talk to kindergartners. When I go talk to 21, 22-year-olds and ask them the same question, what do you want to do? What do you want to be? What do you want your life to look like? You're just starting the journey of adulthood. What do you want for your life? And without fail, by far the most common answer is, I don't know. I don't know what I want to do. I don't know what I can do. I don't know what my options are. And somewhere between the time you are in kindergarten and the time you're in your 20s, all of us as a society, we beat that hope out of you. And we have to be able to restore that hope. We have to be able to give people an awareness of those options again. All of that was there for you when you were 5 and 6, it's still there for you when you're 21, 22, 27, 34. Like, you can still have hope and you can still live a life that is full of hope, and we have to be able to do better. And that's, to me, one of the biggest reasons to bring this specific issue to the forefront and raise awareness around the prevalence of domestic violence, because if we don't know that it's there, then we are not intentionally restoring hope to the people who are struggling through this. And that's what we should be doing. That when we as a full society get to a place where we see this and we want to disrupt this, then we're not going to hear as many stories of survivors saying, I went to someone who I thought I could trust and I was shut down. I may have even gone to a domestic violence agency and been shut down. Like, again, those stories happen far too often. That should not be the case. But the only way it's not going to be the case is when all of us take that responsibility and live our lives with an awareness of what's happening and a desire to stop that from happening.
Today is monumental in that it's saying no longer are we going to act as if this isn't happening. No longer are we going to be quiet about something that society as a whole seems to be normalizing all the more. Today is about recognizing that as a faith leader, someone who is supposed to be a champion of love, someone who is supposed to be a champion for those that don't have a voice, it's imperative that in this season, when so many people feel as if their voice is being taken away from them, that I come out and I stand up to be a voice for those voiceless individuals and say, no longer are we going to try to act like this isn't happening. We're not going to ignore it, and ignoring it isn't going to make it go away. Simply wishing is not going to make it go away. Neither is simply just, I'm gonna go in my back room and I'm gonna pray, and when I finish praying, then it's all going to be better. No, at some point we have to get up off of our knees and we have to actually do something. And so my standing up, this is important that I participate so that I can actually be doing something and I can actually be part of the change that I want to see. When we can't openly stand up against domestic violence, which is something that can be stopped. It's not like this is something that's going to be with us always. This can be stopped if we stop playing the blame game and saying that it's somebody else's problem to deal with. No, it's our problem to deal with. We have to do something. We have to say something.
It is important that we break the silence because the people around you know that this is an issue. And if they are out there hearing you saying, we hear you, we understand you, and we want to support you, it is more likely than not that they are going to come forward. So it's very important that we break the silence.
It's important to break the silence because it hurts us all in the end. It's important to break the silence because we don't want our kids growing up with violence in the home. We don't want it to be generational. We want to end it and we want to stop it now.
It is very important that we support each other in our community and try to get rid of this domestic violence. Communication, you know what I'm saying? Accountability. There's so many people not accountable for their own actions. I think that's a big thing. I think that as adults, we want to say the way I was raised was, you know, that's not an excuse for me. It's not an excuse to me. You don't look at me and say the way you were raised was. In your community, if you was raised toxic, then you need to do better. You don't have to continue toxic circles. It's all about, you know, getting rid of that toxic circle. And a lot of people just get stuck in that as to what I saw, this is what I was raised, this is all I know. Just choose to do better and be different.
Yeah, I think that a lot of it really is sort of the information piece of really how to access information, how to understand what's going on, because systems get used against people. Law enforcement gets used against people. Even protective orders that people get for themselves get used as a weapon against them. And that fear is so powerful. And to have something that is a system that should be helping you used as a weapon against you, really wanting to turn the tide on that and give someone support. And I think for me, one of the biggest things, most people struggle to understand what happened, why it happened, why they did or didn't do certain things. And for them to understand, we understand domestic violence. You know, there are a lot of people in your family, in your community, in your circle that are struggling to understand what happened. We understand domestic violence. And so, you know, after 22 years of doing domestic violence work, I will say there is not a situation where I'm gonna judge somebody, where I'm not gonna have some level of understanding. So we can hear it and we can hold that information and we can help you work through that and understand those pieces. Our advocates know about the cycle of violence. They know about tools and manipulation.
Exactly. Fear is a liar. Come get the information. Set yourself free. We got you.
Healing is like a long journey, and it has its like ups and downs, and you know, you think you're going forward and sometimes you're going backwards, and but I think it's a journey that's worth it. You know, thinking about, you know, my daughter is like, you know, she's looking up to me. She sees like I'm taking care of myself. She sees that she's worthy too, and it's really important for our young folks too.
Speak up, tell somebody. You know, I have a lot of male friends, brothers that have put their hands on women, and I tell them the same thing when they tell me, I don't care if it's a relative, I don't care if it's my brother, leave him, you know? I'm not gonna sugarcoat. There's a lot of women that sugarcoat that and condone it and want somebody to stay with an abuser, you know? You know, my mom is kind of like that, you know, she knows my brother is the abuser, but, you know, she kind of, I mean, she pacifies him with it and justifies him and blames the woman. It's not her fault. It don't matter, a man shouldn't put his hands on a woman. I just think people need to speak out and tell their truth.
All of us as a community, as a society, we have to do better in responding to people who are crying for help in these situations. Again, because the amount of strength and courage that it takes for someone to get to a place where I'm seeking that help, like that's a tremendous step. And it takes so much strength to be able to get that, and then to be pushed back down. It's heartbreaking and it's immensely hard to deal with.
The historical narratives and truth around abuse and violence has been able to hide in the crevices of organizations and these huge structures, right, that are supposed to be safe havens. No one goes to the hospital and expects to literally go in with one broken leg and come out with two. Right? You go to the hospital because you're looking to them to heal that which is broken. And so when we hear about our faith community, which should be a spiritual hospital room, a hospital room of safety, of healing for so many different areas of our lives that are broken, we hear that it is infested with abuse and pain, whether that's sexual abuse, whether it is domestic violence. It is a reminder to us that there's a piece of humanity in every area, in every system, in every organization that must be held accountable, and that we as individuals can never, ever close our eyes to when we see signs of pain, where we see signs of hurt, and we have to call it out. And it breaks my heart. It breaks my heart that someone cannot be safe inside a faith building. I don't care if it's a mosque, a temple, a church. That's supposed to be refuge. I mean, if you think about it, in the past, that was where people screamed sanctuary. They were running from the enemy. They were looking for a place of safety to find refuge, and you would run to the church and you could claim sanctuary because you were safe. And when we hear that in the very institution, the very building, that place is no longer sanctuary, it's no longer a place of safety, but in some cases, the very ground zero for trauma and for abuse, it's disheartening, it's sickening. And we have to hold it accountable, and we have to stop it. And we have to stop watching it and making excuses. It's easy to have people in power abuse it. And even in the faith community, people have power and they abuse it. And we need to take the power away and put it back into the places in the hands of those that need it.
Recognizing the warning signs is crucial. They may include controlling behavior, isolation from loved ones and support networks, constant criticism and belittling remarks, threats or intimidation tactics. If you suspect someone may be experiencing domestic abuse, or if you find yourself in an abusive relationship, you are not alone. Reach out for help. There are numerous organizations offering confidential assistance around the clock. Helplines provide emotional support while guiding you through safety planning options and connecting you with local resources tailored to each individual needs. Education lies at the heart of prevention. By educating ourselves about healthy relationships and communication skills early on, we can break down societal norms that perpetuate violence within our homes. By teaching empathy and respect for all, from childhood onwards, we create a better future for generations to come. Prevention starts with each of us. By encouraging open conversation about domestic violence and challenging harmful stereotypes, we foster a culture of respect and equality. We can raise awareness through workshops, school programs, and social media campaigns, all aimed at empowering individuals to speak up against abuse. Let's stand united in breaking the cycle of domestic abuse.
And if you say, oh, I don't condone domestic violence, if you don't say something, you're condoning it. You're part of the problem. And so if you don't openly, not privately, it's not enough that in our back corners we say, oh no, I don't want that. No, you have to come out openly and say that this is wrong. I'm not going to blame the person and ask the person, why would you stay, and not tell you, why did you do it? They shouldn't have to deal with whether or not, oh, well, what did you do? Or what did you say? If you just be sweeter, if you just smile a little more, just try to be nice. No, there's a problem. And we have to call that out. And so we have to have that same indignation where there are certain things that it should make us angry.
Is there anything else you would want a young lady or a young man that's going through DV right now to know? If you could send them a message, what would you tell them?
You're not alone. You are not alone.
I would just want them to know that it gets better, you know, and to speak out about it, talk to somebody and get yourself out of that situation, especially if you have kids involved.
I mean, first of all, it's not your fault. And if you ever have a doubt, you know, there are people that you can speak to get that feedback and perspective. And we're worthy of the support and the love that we all deserve.
I believe what tells them, there's nothing There's nothing worth it. Whether it's now or later, there's no love in abuse. There's no love in abuse. That's like looking back on your past, that, you know, your life that you lived already and then made all these mistakes in life. It taught you this, that. If you're living, you're learning. You know, so learn to love yourself.
You are enough. You are enough. You are beautiful. You are uniquely made. You are enough, and you do not deserve this. Nobody signs up for that, no matter, no love can accomplish that, to break the ties of somebody in domestic violence. You have to know you are enough.
When you are secluded, that gives the predator grounds to keep attacking. You will not receive the help that you need if you are secluded and if you are silent. Please, please get help. If you don't know where to start, try looking up organizations, try just doing some type of research. But if you are secluded and if you are silent about the pain that you are enduring, the first step is to speak about it. Talk about it, figure it out, do some research. Please get the help.
If you are listening to this video, just know that if you're in this situation, you are not alone. There are others. There are a lot of people who go through it, and they're in it, and they don't know how to get out. But you can get out. It is something that does not have to hold you down. You don't have to live in it. And there are people that are out there to support you, whether you know them or not. I will definitely be a support if anyone needs it. I will definitely be a support to help someone else get out of what I've already been through, just because I know what it can do to a person. And I thank God it hasn't destroyed me, but it has made me stronger. But not everybody is strong enough to withstand it. So if I can help someone, if I can help you get out of that situation, allow me to be that support for you. Allow other folks who've been through it to be that support for you.
Deep breath. Deep breath. Killing it.
To the man, the woman, the boy, the girl, the child, God loves you. God did not create you to be somebody else's punching bag. He didn't create you to feel neglected. He didn't create you to be broken. He didn't create you so that you could make excuses for what somebody else is or is not. He created you in his image, and he loves you so much. He has a special purpose for you. He has a special plan for you. And everything that you've gone through, right, wrong, or indifferent, God is going to use, and it's going to transform not just your life, but the lives of every single one that you're connected to. I want you to know that it's not in vain. But I also want you to know that you have the strength to leave. You have the strength to walk away. You have the strength to start anew. You have the strength to do something different, to be something different, to be something greater than this. You need to know that you're absolutely amazing all by yourself. You don't need somebody else to come and tell you that you're something. You need to know that you're amazing, whether they say it or not. You're amazing. You can beat this. You will beat this. You will get through this. And when you come out on the other end, the story that you have to tell is going to save the lives of so many. So I want you to know that this is not the season. Don't give up. Don't quit. Don't throw in your towel. I want you to know that you will survive this, and you will be better for it, and that you are loved. God loves you.
Together, we can make a difference by promoting healthy relationships based on trust, communication, and equality. Remember that everyone deserves to feel safe and loved within their own homes. If you or someone you know needs immediate assistance or information about domestic abuse resources near you, please reach out to the helpline numbers provided on your screen. Help is just a call away. Remember, you are not alone.
It's not by chance that you're watching this video and listening to our voices. And whether you are like us, having tears running down your face, or you're scared of everything he or she has said to you, I'm telling you, you have a village of support. You deserve better. You are better. It's not your fault. There's nothing you could do that could change them. But you deserve the best. You deserve peace and rest. Your family and you can get through this. I want you to know I see you. I see your wounds and your current scar. Take that step today. Reach out, whether it's to an organization or to a friend, to the post office man. It might even be the cashier. Reach out. Break the silence. Violence loves silence. That's why we need to make the new noise, a noise of hope, a noise that will start your healing. Speak up, speak out, and we will listen.